No matter what you do, you can't stop something from happening. Life just feels like it's coming at you and you're just reacting and you have no agency. That can be the most stressful existence. So let's talk about ways that you can get organized. Welcome to the Sober Strength Show, powered by Or Health. I'm your host, Jesse Carrajat. Thank you for being here. Today is part one of a two-part series called Mastering Stress. In this episode, we're going to talk about things that you can do proactively, a strong foundation that you can lay in your life to help you prevent or reduce stress, again, proactively. Next week, we're going to talk about things that you can do to cope with or reduce stress when you're already feeling it in the moment. And you may be asking yourself, why are we talking about stress? Well, that's because stress oftentimes can be the number one reason that people overindulge on things like alcohol, why people seek escape through things like binge watching Netflix or social media, or even turning to things like gambling or pornography and so many other addictions just to escape, to get some fleeting sense of dopamine, to escape from the cortisol and all of the just uncomfortable feelings that come with stress. So it's very important, and we're going to dive right in. So today, we're going to try to hopefully help you, I'll say, stop playing defense and start playing offense to get ahead of the stress. So focus on really science-backed ways to master stress before it completely consumes you. So in this part one, again, of a two-part series, we're really going to lay the foundation for stress-proofing, or you might say bulletproofing, your life. So we're going to cover three foundational areas and give some practical takeaways for you to start practicing today to try to reduce stress in your life. And those three pillars, or those three foundations, are sleep, nutrition, and personal organization. Yes, that's right, personal organization. Sometimes we make our lives more stressful because of the lack of organization in our life or lack of prioritization. We're going to talk about some ways where you can kind of rebuild or regain a sense of agency or control in your life by being more organized, okay? And everything that we're going to share today is going to be science-backed. So to get started, before we jump in, as always, I'd like to ask, if you haven't already, please follow our show wherever you find us. That could be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or all of the places. If you're willing and able, if you could leave us a review, maybe even a rating, and just share this podcast with anybody else, it just goes such a long way in helping us find people so that we can help them lead healthier, happier lives. So let's jump in, and I'm going to start with an absolute juggernaut in the space of mental health and podcasting and just general performance, Dr. Andrew Huberman from the Huberman Lab podcast. Let's kick it off with hearing what he has to say. Here's a clip with Dr. Huberman talking about stress and its impact on the brain.
What is stress? Stress at its core is a generalized system. It wasn't designed for tigers attacking us or people attacking us. It's a system to mobilize other systems in the brain and body. It wasn't designed for one thing. And that gives it a certain advantage in taking over the state of our brain and body, but it also gives you, all of us, an advantage in controlling it because it's based on hardwired biological mechanisms, and there are hardwired biological mechanisms, meaning cells and chemicals and pathways and tissues that exist in you right now that require no neural plasticity that allow you to put a brake on stress.
So hopefully, as you heard and understood there, stress is not just in your head. It's not just an experience. It's a very real and very full-blown physiological response that is happening in your brain. So when you're under stress, what's happening? Well, your brain activates what's called the sympathetic nervous system. That's your fight or flight system, if you've heard of that. Your cortisol spikes, your heart rate increases, your digestion slows down, and your body prepares as if it's going to fight something or defend something. It's a primitive response that has gone on for generations that serves us well. Our nervous system exists to protect us. Well, the interesting thing about modern humans today is we're not trying to fight off predators. We're not trying to survive in the wilderness. We're not unhoused living in a cave with an unexpected weather event coming where we need these powerful stress response systems. The modern human, especially in America, is absolutely safe, absolutely fed, has all of the resources and all of the things that we need to survive. So why do we have these kind of chronic low-grade stress responses and things going on all the times? Well, it's because we haven't evolved out of that. So we still have those systems. And the things that we are protective of or fearful of these days are things like interpersonal conflict, rejection, shame, judgment, not performing at work, not performing in a relationship, right? I mean, these are the things that we're consciously afraid of. So we still have these underlying stress systems that are underneath us. And when we're feeling stressed, our brain wants to be comfortable. It wants to turn them off. It desperately seeks some type of endorphin or some type of dopamine hit to help feel balanced and remove that uncomfortable feeling. And that's where we can find solace in things like alcohol. We can find solace and protection and comfort in things like social media because it turns our mind off whatever we're ruminating about or meandering on, right? It just redirects our focus. And especially depending on what you're watching or what you're consuming with your eyes, it can give you a dopamine response and it starts to feel pleasurable. And over time, we could seek those things more and more and more. And that's when they become a destructive habit. But it starts with that feeling that comes from stress or cortisol in your brain, right? So key point there is that there's something happening in your brain that's pushing you towards or driving you towards that release that you're looking for to find, I'll say, escape. And that's how addiction starts, right? It's not about just having that drink. Sometimes it becomes, I need that drink. And then you need it more and more, and you find yourself in a pretty bad spiral. So that's why we're focusing today on those areas that can give you back control, to prevent that stress response from being so strong that it really drives you down a bad road. And again, it's sleep, organization, and nutrition. So if you master these, you don't have to numb the stress. You shouldn't get stressed as easily. Hey, it's Jesse, and if you've been following this show, then you know I've had my fair share of struggles with alcohol over the years. You also know that I built a pretty solid toolkit to help maintain a healthy relationship with alcohol. Things like fitness, mindfulness, accountability groups, and technology. All great, all helpful, but there's one tool I've recently found that blew my mind, and I can't believe it took me so long to discover it. It's called naltrexone, an FDA-approved, science-backed, and affordable medication that helps reduce cravings and control drinking. The first time I took it, I'll never forget, I was skeptical and not completely buying into the idea that a medication can help me with drinking. But just after a few days, I could not believe how effective it was in eliminating all of my cravings for alcohol. It needs to be more better known. And that is where Or Health comes in, and I'm honored to have them as a sponsor of the show. You can have doctor-prescribed naltrexone shipped discreetly and directly to your door. No pharmacies, no doctor's offices, just the help you need. It's online, it's private, and it's judgment-free, and most importantly, it works. As of today, over 35,000 Or members have been treated, and 76% of respondents report drinking less in just 2 short weeks. So here's how to get started. Text STRENGTH to 710-710. That's STRENGTH to 710-710. You'll take a quick, discreet survey, and they'll guide you through the entire process of trying naltrexone for the first time. It's easy, straightforward, and honestly, might be the best move you make for yourself today. So if you're ready to take a massive step forward into controlling your alcohol intake, text STRENGTH to 710-710 and let Or Health help you redefine your relationship with alcohol. So let's start with number 1, sleep. I'm starting with this because it is hands down the number one tool for stress resilience. If you aren't sleeping, frankly, you're making stress 10 times worse. Lack of sleep cranks up your cortisol. It fries your ability to handle stress, makes you emotionally reactive, and just ruins your ability to focus. It also destroys your discipline. Have you ever noticed how when you're exhausted, your willpower is just gone? That's because sleep is the fuel source for self-control. So if you're someone who's just trying to, say, cut back on drinking, or who finds themselves stress drinking, for example, start by looking at your sleep. Now, here's what to do. Try, if you can, to have a sleep routine. Go to bed and wake up as close as possible to the same time every single day, even on weekends. Number 2, eliminate blue light at least 30 minutes before bed. Better yet, 60 minutes. No scrolling your phone, no Netflix, no checking your calendar the next day, no polishing off those final emails. Just remove blue light. So that's screens, right? Coming from your phones. Another benefit to this is oftentimes when we're on our phone, we're multitasking, we're jumping these little like micro hits of focus where we're looking at this picture, we're swiping to the next one. Oh, I thought of that. Let me look that up. Let me jump over here. Terrible for your focus. More on that in a later episode. But again, eliminate blue light before bed. Third, if you're a caffeine drinker, let's face it, most of us are, try your best, assuming you have a regular sleep kind of schedule, meaning that you're up during the day and sleeping at night. Remove caffeine after 2 p.m. No caffeine. Try to pull that one back and see how you feel. If that feels like a struggle for you, you might be addicted to coffee, but that's another conversation. And then lastly, the fourth thing you can do to try to have better sleep, make your room 2 things, dark and cold. Okay, quiet, of course, but dark and cold. Invest in blackout curtains, a fan if the noise helps you sleep, whatever it takes. But science will tell you that if you have a regular sleep routine, if you kill blue lights before bed, if you try your best to cut out caffeine after 2 p.m. and have a cool and dark room, you will sleep better. Some people say 8 hours, 7 hours. I think most studies today find that that number, that sweet spot for sleep is different from person to person, but try your best to get at least a minimum of 7 hours of sleep. And that doesn't mean 7 hours in bed, 7 hours of actual sleep, because most of us are not actually sleeping for about 10% of the time that we're in bed. So it's really important to plan ahead for that. Check out this clip from the NIH, which is just all about sleep and how important it is. And just it really speaks to what quality sleep can do for your stress levels. Check out this clip.
Fortunately, short-term sleep deprivation is easy to study, and it unequivocally demonstrates a remarkable negative impact on cognition, on physical performance, on physical markers of health, such as insulin resistance, on appetite. Everything that can go wrong in the human body goes wrong when you are sleep deprived.
Okay, so we talked about sleep. Let's now move to the next key pillar for stress reduction, and that's nutrition. Nutrition, I mean, if sleep is number one, nutrition is right next to it. You cannot run a high-performance brain, a healthy brain, if you just have garbage fuel. And that's just it. That's it. I think everyone now in 2025 understands the importance of nutrition, but let's talk about how specifically it relates to stress levels and the health of your brain, right? So your gut and brain are connected. You may have heard of your gut-brain connection. If you are eating ultra-processed junk, slamming sugar, living on caffeine and alcohol, you are programming yourself to be anxious, fatigued, and completely unable to manage stress. I'll say that again. Anxious, fatigued, and stressed. Your nutrition, or lack thereof, will do that to you. And you can find yourself quite literally in a death spiral. So here's the blueprint. If you want to start eating in a way that makes you live and feel better and healthier. All right. So protein is huge. Every meal should have a solid source of protein equally distributed throughout the day in moderate portions. Number 2, healthy fats and fiber. Okay. Key there is the word healthy. Fats are fine. If they're unhealthy, they're brutal for everything that I just mentioned in your body. So look for sources of omega-3s, things like fish and nuts, healthy oils, avocado oil, things like that. Eat whole foods. Another word for whole is real foods. One way to know if you're eating real foods is look at the ingredients on what you're eating. If there's more than one ingredient, it's not a whole food. And what I mean is, what is the ingredient of an apple? It's an apple. What is the ingredient of turkey? Turkey. Look at the ingredients on your protein bar, which is convenient. Count how many ingredients. That's not a whole food. And I know that life can be difficult and it's okay to have some cheat codes to get you the calories you need to keep fueling your system, but try your best and be intentional to eat whole foods only and cut out processed junk. And then lastly, you need to stabilize your blood sugar. And that all comes down to having good sources of carbohydrates at the right time. You don't want to be having these kind of crashes up and down because carbs, of the three main macros, right? You have fats, protein, and carbs. Carbs are the one that can most directly impact your emotions, your regulation, things like that. So make sure that you're eating balanced, good forms of carbohydrates. And if you want to optimize further, there are supplements that you can absolutely take. And let's just say you can't, because it's inconvenient or expensive, get omega-3s from fish. You can always supplement with omega-3s for brain function and mood. Creatine, believe it or not, creatine for the longest time was primarily used for physical training, weightlifting, bodybuilding, things like that. It's actually a nootropic that you can take for cognitive performance. Recommend 5 to 10 grams per day of ethically sourced creatine. Magnesium is fantastic for nervous system regulation. And then lastly, I'll mention rhodiola, which is proven to be fantastic for stress reduction and just overall mood balance. And just to throw one more in, probiotics. Highly recommend you eat foods that are high in probiotics and prebiotics. So anything fermented, you might look at, say, kimchi, sauerkraut, foods like that. Yogurt can be great, but just watch the sugar and the flavor in those. You want to get as close to a sugar-free, or I would even say, whole food type yogurt that you can have. And you can even take supplements for probiotics if you can't get it from your food. So those are some great tips for you. So again, protein evenly throughout the day, healthy fats, and make sure that you're not having blood sugar crashes from too much sugar and bad sources of carbohydrates, and supplement if you need it. Look, for some reason, when it comes to mental health and recovery from alcohol misuse, people don't talk about supplements enough. When I decided to step away from alcohol and rebuild my health, I quickly learned that nutrition and supplementation weren't just optional, they're essential. That's why I choose Momentous supplements. Look, for me, the goal has always been about health span, living better for longer. And when it comes to supplements for high performers, nobody does it like Momentous. Momentous invests heavily in NSF certification, meaning every batch of their products is tested for heavy metals, harmful additives, and label claim accuracy. You got to know what you're putting in your body. And that's why Momentous is trusted by all 32 professional NFL teams and D1 collegiate sports team dietitians across the country. And look, Momentous doesn't offer every supplement under the sun. Other brands can do that just fine. Instead, Momentous nails the basics with bone-crushing consistency to help you build the perfect and intentional routine for you. And when we talk about basics, what are we talking about? What do I take? I take their protein and their creatine. Momentous protein is best in class for muscle repair and growth, while their CreaPure creatine, the purest form of creatine monohydrate, supports both physical strength and cognitive performance. These are foundational supplements that I continue to use to this day in my health journey for physical strength, mental fitness, and emotional resilience. So whether you're taking your first step or your next step in your fitness journey, these supplements are the building blocks of living better longer. Go to livemomentous.com and try it today at 20% off with code STRENGTH. That's livemomentous.com. 20% off with code STRENGTH, and start living on purpose today. So that's sleep, and nutrition. And then the last one, this is fun. I've been looking forward to talking about this. Get organized. Personal organization. Look, a lack of agency or a lack of control, feeling out of control, feeling like no matter what you do, you can't stop something from happening. You can't get ahead at work. Life just feels like it's coming at you and you're just reacting and you have no agency. That can be the most stressful existence you can have. You can feel hopeless, frustrated, and then just be in a really bad place and then look to disconnect. So let's talk about ways that you can get organized. So we don't want to be constantly behind. We don't want to be scrambling. We don't want to be unprepared. We want to make sure that we're being proactive and we have systems in place underneath us to help us do that, right? So what's the move? What can you do? Let's get organized. So obvious. Use a calendar. And I don't just mean something that you hang on the wall and then you just write off, hey, in 3 weeks, I've got my niece's birthday party. I mean, really lean into, if you have an iPhone, your iCalendar, set reminders, establish what I'll call blocks in your calendar. That's protected time that you treat as an appointment and you really try to be disciplined with it. So example, exercise is something we are going to talk about in the next episode. Plan your exercise in your calendar, set a reminder and hold yourself accountable, right? So use blocks. Your blocks could also be for things like mindfulness. They could be for things like chores. You could set like a monthly block for budgeting, reviewing your expenses, reviewing if you have investments, but use a calendar with technology. You can even share one with your spouse if you guys are managing things together, maybe managing a busy household with kids, share it. You can notify each other through it, but use a calendar and put blocks in there, right? So not only are you having like actual events like birthday parties, vacations, trash and recycling day, but put in proactive blocks for some of these healthy tools that we're going to be talking about these next 2 episodes. And again, treat them like it's an appointment with a person. I know a lot of times we'll put something in the calendar. It might be like tomorrow, wake up and go for a run, right? You put it in the calendar and then you're feeling a little sluggish and like, well, I'll blow it off. What? Would you blow it off if it was a person? And why aren't you respecting yourself as much as you would respect someone else that you have a commitment with? So use blocks. They're amazing. Try them out. And then here's another like really easy one that you could do. Declutter your space. A lot of times a messy surrounding just makes us feel anxious. It makes us feel defeated. Take a look at your space. Where can you declutter? Where can you put things away? What can you get rid of? Is there too much on the wall? How does your environment make you feel? Does it make you feel anxious? Well, guess what? If you're anxious about work, if you're anxious about making ends meet with the bills, if you're anxious about a conflict you have with someone, and then on top of that, your environment makes you anxious, look, you're only human. There's only so much you could take before you just break. And then again, what are we trying to prevent? Turning to things like alcohol and others, right? So try to declutter your space, right? So those are just some tools, calendar, blocks in your calendar, and just declutter your space and declutter your life. And those are some low-hanging fruits and things that you can do today to make sure that you're staying organized. And just one little extra tip for you, it's something that my wife and I have done in our life, and it's just really has gone a long way of just kind of like easing tension around finances, is look into an app. Look into an app. There's the one that we use, and I'm not affiliated at all. It's called Monarch. You can look that up. There's others just like it. But look into an app that pulls in all of your debt, all of your income, all of your investments, puts it in one place and lets you track and just watch everything that you have going on financially, right? So you can, if you've got multiple credit cards, for me, a business checking account, I've got a personal checking account, I've got 401k, I've got retirement stuff, I've got all these things, right? And sometimes it's overwhelming to log in over here to look at this and go over here and look at that. And then you get a push notification, some weird expense over here, and you can just feel out of control, right? Again, lack of agency, and it can be stressful. But if you have an app like Monarch or something else like it, you can have all of those in one place and you can set up goals, you can set up rules, you can set up all sorts of things so you can just feel, again, like you have control. Maybe look into an app like that for your personal finances, because sometimes our finances can be the most stressful thing about life. And this episode is about stress. So get organized. So that's your foundation. And that's it for this episode. Again, we talked about sleep. We talked about nutrition, went down a little bit of a rabbit hole on supplements. Then we talked about personal organization and things you can do. And if you don't have these under control, if you don't have these solid, you're setting yourself up just to be stressed. Okay, so in part 2, we'll talk about what to do when we are stressed and also some additional things to fortify or bulletproof our life. And those things are going to be exercise, mindfulness, and additional supplements that will prevent you from self-medicating. So I hope this was helpful. If you would share it with someone you know, thank you for showing up for yourself and for checking out the show today. And until next time, I'm Jesse Carrajat with Sober Strength. Live deep. All right, everybody, that's the show, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Sober Strength podcast and spending some time with us today. We've got a favor to ask. If you enjoyed the show, would you please consider subscribing to the show and even leaving a rating and review? That simple act drastically helps us reach more people in our mission to help them live better, longer, healthier lives. You can also follow us if you'd like on Instagram and YouTube for regular tips and motivation around mental health, addiction, and so much more. Know that your support fuels our brand and is greatly appreciated. So until next time, stay strong and live deep.